This Nerf blaster looks pretty innocent. Until you realize she really thick. Which means a lot more darts. Let's get into it. It is about freaking time I get to talk about this thing, because this thing has been knocking around for a couple of months now. It came out in late 2018, and here we are in space year 2019, and we have all sorts of cool stuff coming out, like, I don't know, the NERF Titan CS50 has a 50-round drum, and everybody lost their minds, and yet some people already knew about this thing. And what could this possibly be? Well, this is the magazine to the WORKER Dominator. A thing I keep wanting to call the Dominator because the Dominator doesn't deserve its name unless you like dooming yourself. But this thing, well, also probably doesn't deserve that name. So I should probably just call it the Dominator, but I don't think it deserves that name either. Or does it? This is a weird amalgamation of things because this blaster on paper should work really good. And I'll be completely honest, I have not watched anybody else's review on this. And I have a feeling most of its issues are from me, so I'm going to kind of talk about this as a hypothetical thing and then what I actually have in my hand. But case point, the WORKER Dominator's claim to fame is the fact that it has a double-stacked NERF magazine. This is not something that we have really seen in any other capacity except for a video done by one Hanoya Toysmith on YouTube several years ago, and nothing else really came from that. And here we are with yet another double-stacked magazine. And I have to actually apologize to somebody because a fan of mine actually went to me and said, "Hey, Walcom, we should make the double-stacked magazine." And I told her that don't know how possible that is because foam like bunches up and stuff like that and kind of flattens. And I thought if it was possible, it would have been done in a greater capacity. And yet, shortly after that, this came out. Which means this magazine right here, it says it holds 40. I can comfortably fit 44 in here, and I bet I could fit even more if I really wanted to, but if you don't want to use the entire point that is the Dominator, you can, of course, just put in the shims that come with the blaster and use standard-sized magazines. That is an option, and what about the blaster itself? Well, we'll just ignore pretty much all of this up front. It's basically a swordfish, which is basically a strife, but out of the box, this blaster comes with a bit more than what you would get with a swordfish, in that it has a micro switch already set in there for the rev trigger, and it has a semi-auto trigger, but where's the fun in that? This entire kit was sent to me by nfstrike.com, and I thank them profusely for that, because what I'm holding here is rather an expensive setup for this blaster. This is supposed to be the creme de la creme, the highest tier that you could possibly bring this blaster up to, according to at least WORKER and F-Strike, and maybe? I mean, performance was really good, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, you don't need to have 3 sets of flywheels in here. It's got space for them, but you don't need it. You could obviously run this with 1 pair of flywheels and be pretty happy with it, but where's the fun in that? You also don't need the full auto kit or the speed controllers here, potentiometers. But why wouldn't you have those? Because you can. Because that's half the fun of the blaster. And this is a lot of money. A lot. An insane amount of money for a blaster. This costs, like, this is reaching FDL tier levels of expensive blaster. Thankfully, the magazines themselves, if you want to buy extra ones, aren't that expensive. In fact, I don't even think the blaster actually comes with a magazine. I think you have to buy the magazine separate, or just buy a kit with all the stuff you could possibly need, like right here. But wow, the shell by itself, honestly, this looks like it's pretty frick huge. It's really comfortable. Like, really, I don't even like having this foregrip on here. It's actually way better to hold it kind of like this. It's got a grip guard, and it's got a stock attachment point, a long rail on the top, and that's about it. It does not have a muzzle attachment point because of how this is designed, which is kind of weird. I'm sure they had a reason. Maybe they didn't want you to stick a barrel attachment on here and just have a gap in the thing right here and wonder why none of your darts were coming out of it, but yeah, it's got like these 2 removable pieces up front, which I'm guessing are gonna be for like a laser sight and a flashlight. I honestly, just like with the swordfish, this blaster has so many little things, like the switch on the side a spot in the grip, all these, like, there's a hole right here for something. It has so many parts and places for things to go that aren't actually there, which means there's probably a whole lot of stuff that's going to come out for this in the very near future, but here we are a couple of months later, and none of that stuff has really revealed itself yet. So you make do with what you can. So you put this kind of barrel right here, you put a suppressor on it, because why not? Doesn't actually make it quieter. In fact, this thing sounds louder than a lawnmower, but you can do it. If you want intimidation factor, a good way of doing that is by having 3 flywheel cages and 6 flywheels and 6 motors in your friggin' blaster. And that brings up an excellent question. Why does this thing have 3 flywheel cages? Well, double-stage or multi-stage flywheels have actually been around in the hobby for quite a long amount of time. I would say 2 or 3 years at this point. Once flywheels started to take off and people were realizing, yeah, flywheels can actually hit like 130 FPS pretty easily, how do we get that up there? And more importantly, how do we get that up there with like a, I don't know, insanely powerful long shot? Like obviously, yeah, I can have semi-auto or full auto at 130, maybe 150 FPS, but I want more. I want to be able to tag out those 250 FPS long shots. How do I do that? The answer? Add another flywheel cage. And suddenly things get a lot spicier, because that gives you a lot more power, at least if you have the proper setup. Is this the proper setup? Because this is the one that Worker pretty much recommends. They are canted flywheel cages, so that's supposed to improve your accuracy because it imparts a spin to the dart, and there's 3 of them in a row. So more contact time to the dart equals more power? Maybe. I was under the impression that the power to the dart is imparted by the contact time between the wheels and the foam, and recently that's been debunked. In fact, that was debunked for me a while ago when my buddy Jaxmay decided to make a short dart Foxfire with some insane wheels in it, and that thing was hitting 180 FPS with Worker Stefan darts, which was rather cool. This thing, I don't think Worker did a whole lot of thought and effort into that, because it's just the same flywheels right here in a multi-stage setup, and well, I do get nearly 200 FPS. In fact, I hit 199 multiple times, so I'm willing to bet if I were to spend long enough time in front of the chronograph, this thing would actually hit that 200 FPS mark. It could be better. I know that double-stage flywheelers can hit upwards of 220, and I know Epic Whale decided he was going to do like multi-stage brushless, and I think with something like 5 or 6 brushless setups, he managed to hit nearly 300 FPS. You're basically building a foam railgun. It's pretty ridiculous. I don't even know what to say to that. And usually you want like your final cage to be spinning faster than your starter cage, which is supposed to be the more powerful of the wheels. And then there's just 3 of the same. I'm not quite sure, but I am going to say that with this setup, I'm at least happy with the performance, because 200 FPS, at least with like a vinyl, like FVJ kind of thing, is pretty good. So why didn't I crony that with my absolute favorite darts from the Dart Zone Primetime Toys waffle tip things that you can get like 200 of for 10 bucks? They don't like this blaster. They jam constantly. It doesn't work. I had to remove the metal insert in the barrel, and I actually managed to get multiple darts that were just wedged in there, and I almost destroyed the entire thing. So yeah, I guess at least with the triple canted flywheels, you might not want that, but using standard stock kinda FVJ, or at least harder tipped darts than stock, it worked pretty darn good. Performance, accuracy, all that stuff was pretty okay. I still got a large variety of shots that landed half the distance of a lot of other ones, which kind of brings into question the feeding of the magazine and the problems I've been having with this blaster. Right off the bat, putting this thing together, all of it, took me about 4 hours of soldering, which is not great. And, one of the speed controllers here, the one for the flywheels, because it does have the ability to change, at least with the full auto kit in here, not only the speed of the flywheels, so you can shoot softer or harder, but also the rate of fire, from comically too slow to so fast the system can't even keep up, and even beyond that to where it just basically doesn't stop firing. It doesn't work. Yeah, at all. And that's kind of the problem I had with the entire thing, because one of the potentiometers fried itself. So I overnighted another one. And it fried itself. no surprise there. Literal flames. It was pretty ballin', but that means I can't use this right now, and, well, I'm stuck with the normal fire rate adjustment, and to be honest, it's very small. I can really only use, like, a little bit of the actual dial. If you go even higher than that, it literally just keeps firing no matter what, and that could be my fault with the actual, like, wiring in this thing. I followed the little tiny half-inch wiring diagram that's inside the instructions for the firing kit, and it didn't work. Well, it did work, but it doesn't work. Basically, when I rev this thing, it actually brings power to the pusher, and what shuts the pusher off is when it's in the resting position, there's another micro switch right here. So when I pull the trigger, for some reason it ignores that micro switch and moves forward, but when it gets stuck on the magazine, which it does very often, it then just sits there and doesn't do anything, doesn't retract, and doesn't work, which is kind of annoying. I honestly, I don't know how to fix it. I'm assuming somebody out there will get this to work. So maybe somebody else has. I had a lot of issues with it. I didn't even really get the chance to figure out if this magazine is all it's cracked up to be, because the pusher keeps catching on the magazine, like the darts. So I would assume it feeds fine, because a couple of shots it will work fine, and then it gets hung up, and then a couple of shots it works fine, and then it gets hung up. And the idea here is that you have potentially 44 darts, at least effortlessly, in a box bag like this, which is, while you could get a 50-round drum that's about the size of a blaster, this is a little bit more manageable. Yes, you could have essentially two 18-round stick mags or 22-round stick mags in roughly this size. They are a tad bit thicker. I still think this is a better setup. In fact, I think this entire thing is absolute genius, even if this is currently the only blaster that will use these mags. But the problem stems is that I can't get it to work with what was sent to me, which makes this a very interesting video. The problem I feel is the wiring diagram is weird, the pusher system is weird, and maybe that's the biggest fault with this thing. Maybe if I were to change out the pusher to a different one that I might have, it may work even better. Again, I'm really happy with the accuracy I was getting out of these darts. Even though they were crap darts, they were working pretty good, and I'm really happy with the overall velocity. The actual fire rate could be awesome, but it doesn't work. Like, let's give an example. It's gonna get loud. I'll try to edit that, but oh, well, now it works fine. Also, my battery's almost dead. That's another problem you're probably going to be having with this blaster. Not only is it really difficult to fit a battery in this thing, because, well, the standard LiPo that you would use for this kind of setup, because this is your 3S motors, is the pretty typical 3S graphene, it don't fit. Now Worker now shows up a battery that you can use for this thing that you can buy off NF Strike again, but to make those fit, I just cut this out. Everything, all the screw posts and everything are still there, I just cut it out, and it worked perfectly fine, so not an issue there. But the other problem you may have is that since you have 3 times the flywheels, well, you're going to be using a lot more energy, as in your battery is going to get more dead quicker, which is, again, a little bit of an issue with this thing. The flip-up sights that I was sent also with this, I've done a kind of review on before, but I really, really like them. They're comically overusable for what we have right here, a simple peephole sight with a front post, both of which are adjustable, which is pretty crazy to me, but it's never going to be that accurate, so it honestly doesn't matter. But they are cool because they pull down and pop up, and they fit on this Picatinny style rail, so that's great. And the suppressor is awesome. I've actually looked at these before, and you could use just a normal muzzle brake, or you can thread on, again, this faux suppressor, which is awesome. And the adjustable stock is one of my favorite parts that Worker makes. This thing is absolutely solid. It's never going to break, and it's adjustable in multiple positions, and this is near perfect. Seriously, like, I'm not joking. This is really, really comfortable. It's honestly, it looks like it's really big. It's not. And the fact that you can fit a 40-round I was going to call this the heavy assault rifle of NERF, and I think I still will, but it really reminds me more of a heavy SMG, because if you take all the stuff off of it, it's small. It's way smaller than even like a regulator. And it holds 40-something darts. So there's a lot to be said for liking this kind of thing if I could get mine to work properly. So not only is this like a review in the sense that I like the idea of it, maybe Worker's Pusher has some issues, I would pay attention down into the comments if I just did something wrong and somebody else can vouch, no, mine works perfectly, here's why, then yeah, maybe you should check out what they were saying and factor that into your decision to buy this. Otherwise, I would say the actual idea, even this 3-stage flywheel setup with Worker's official cages, although they're not high crush or anything like that, the performance numbers don't lie. This thing hits like a freight train, and it is probably the hardest hitting flywheeler I have, even beyond that of my brushless setup. It's not nearly as efficient, it's way louder, but man is it cool. And if I could just get this to work properly and actually dump the mag perfectly, then I think this would be my go-to flywheeler until I get like a way better Infinus, because having 44 rounds and then like just 3 or 4 more of these magazines, nothing can push you and you can spray and pray everything. And that's huge. You never get caught with your pants down trying to reload. That's absolutely awesome. And I'm really excited to see what else Worker will put out for this, if they put out anything at all, because the idea they have for this, like having all these spots for screens and buttons and switches and stuff like that, I can only wonder what they were planning with this blaster going into the future. But right now, this pusher, I don't know. I really don't feel this pusher at all. And the fact that you don't really have any kind of like cool kits you can put on it yet, this is kind of what you get. And granted, it has the grip guard. I need a thumbhole stock, one that matches the whole clear aesthetic, and a cooler looking barrel, or at least a cooler muzzle device on it. Well, I could fix that. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but overall, I think it's a worthwhile product if I could get it to work right. And I don't necessarily think its faults are its fault. I think it has something to do with how I put mine together. I'm not a clever man, so after a lot of work, I'm glad it just fires. But again, let me know what you think about the WORKER Dominator down in the comment section below. And of course, check out nfstrike.com if you want to look at this exact blaster or any of the parts on it. Other than that, I'm Walcom S7. Thank you so much for watching this video. And of course, I hope to see you in an entirely different one.
You gotta